Who watched the eclipse? Who was outside to see the eclipse? Not everybody, huh? Yeah, it was here in Peterborough. It was there's a term that they use, because I watch the news a bit too. I mean, it's quite an event. It's quite an event. The moon goes in front of the sun. You know, we all live in our heads. We all live in our worlds, right? With our ideas about what's taking place. And then, what, 150 million miles or billion miles away, there's this thing called the sun, and then this moon goes in front of it, and it completely changes what's happening on the earth. Like, wow. Anyway, there are places where there was like a total eclipse, which is not what we had here in Peterborough, but it was still pretty impressive. But the news people called it, when they're talking about the path of the eclipse, they call it the path of totality, which I thought was kind of cool. It was kind of interesting, right? Because that's what we're doing. We're on the path of totality, right? I don't know if everybody gets that, but the idea of at least one way of expressing enlightenment or nirvana is seeing that we're not separate from anything else, and that we're all one, that it's all one expression. And so I find it interesting when you hear the newscasters talking about the path of totality. And are you on the path of totality? Do you feel you're moving towards totality? Anyway, it was a pretty awesome event, I thought. We were standing outside with our glasses on, and the birds seemed quiet, and it was colder. It suddenly got colder. And our street lights went on. And standing outside the house, we have lights on in the living room, but you can't see them in the daylight. But when the eclipse came on, you could see the lights on. So there was a real change in the quality of light here, and it was really something. And then I watched the news a bit. I watched a little bit on CBC and then on CNN, and they were interviewing people, and they interviewed a woman. She was the first female astronaut in the States, in America. And she was dragged to this event in Indiana, which was at the Indianapolis 500, where they have the race cars. And apparently there was a crowd of 50,000 people. And her daughter dragged her there, and she thought she was that she wouldn't like the event. She thought she'd be annoyed by the crowds, and she had already been in a spaceship, so what's a solar eclipse, And she was talking about how moved she was by the experience, how moved she was. And not just the experience of seeing the solar eclipse, but seeing it in the context with all these other people. And I just find that interesting. I find that interesting. I think an event like that really makes us realize maybe how small we are, how insignificant we are in some ways, how vast these powers are of the universe, and how important it is, I think, to have that sense of wonder. It's this big event that's really outside the realm of our daily life. And like, wow. And that's happening all the time. But we lose our sense of wonder, don't we? And then the other part of that was the sharing that sense of wonder with other people. And they interviewed people in Niagara Falls and Newfoundland and in Indianapolis, and everybody had the same comment about that, how it felt like a really communal experience. So I hope that's what we are developing here as well, or as a group, but also like individually, is we are on the path of totality. We are on the path of really exploring our underlying essence. And we are on the path with each other, those seen and unseen, those within this group and those without outside this group. This sense of exploration, this sense of wonder, this sense of clarity, love, and beauty that every once in a while makes itself known. We're not in this alone. It's hard to see sometimes when you go to work or you live your life, and not all your friends, not all the people that you are engaged with have this idea, this idea of being on the path to totality. But a lot of us are. There's a lot of us. And we have this little group here, but all the people that go to the Dharma Center, all of the people through all the times, through all the ages. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of support in this practice and doing this practice. I think we sometimes forget that. And it's really good to feel that. And we're trying to do it a little bit here, but it's all over the place if we look for it. And so when people are together at a significant event like a solar eclipse, and there was a scene in, actually it was described in 2 or 3 of the places that when it peaked, everybody spontaneously said ooh and ah, and they clapped, trying to express what they were feeling. So this path of wonder, this path of staying awake to this wonder, the path of waking up to wonder. I went for a walk this morning. Not far from my place is a place called Jackson Park, and there's wetlands there, river, and beautiful trails. And I spend too much time in my house these days, it seems. Spend a lot of time in my basement. I feel like a groundhog some days. I work down here, I study down here, I sit down here, whatever. Anyway, I went out for a long walk this morning, and it's springtime here, right? And there's all these birds and ducks and geese and little flies and buds. And I was reminding myself, or I was reminded as I went for the walk, how important it was to get out and just experience nature, is to experience that wonder. With this practice, we can get really involved in ourselves and what's right with us, but mostly what's wrong with us. We can get very involved in our world inside our heads. And it's really good to get outside of that. That's why one of the reasons why the Dharma Center was founded and formed, because Namcho Rinpoche wanted his students to get out of the city and to be able to explore nature, to be able to be in nature. And of course, historically, all the yogis and yoginis of the past, they would go out into the forest, into the jungles, into the mountains and practice. But this sense of wonder is oh so important. This sense of looking outside ourselves and seeing the beauty and the mystery that surrounds us. So I think an event like today just really, it's kind of like a big event. It's hard to ignore when all of a sudden the birds go quiet and the sky grows dark and the air grows cool. It's like, wow. Significant. And then, like I said, the wonder now of spring, the wonder of seeing all this life come back, all this life open up. Hmm. There's an experience when the mind becomes quiet and when the heart becomes open. There's an experience of just experience of flow, an experience of flow in your day, where you're just moving through the morning, you're moving through the afternoon, you're moving through your day, and you're just moving from one thing to the other in an open, easeful way. Do you know that feeling? Do you know that feeling? And there's not a lot of commentary. There's not a lot of commentary. It's just you're going from one thing to the other, to the other. And in that state, there's not a lot of need for attention on the past or the future. You're just doing what it is you're doing. And there's a lightness to it. I don't know if you know that experience. There's an experience you're moving through your morning, your day, and you realize how quiet you've been for a while, how the internal dialogue has become quiet. And there's simply the activities, there's simply the chores, there's simply the thing that you've been involved with. However significant or insignificant, there's just that. And there's not a lot extra. So when we've practiced enough, there's a point where it really becomes that simple. It really becomes that simple. And I'm not talking about concentration. I'm not talking about even mindfulness in the normal way that we talk about it. I'm just talking about being with this flow, with this ever-present awareness, this ever-present movement. Recognizing that it's happening, and not looking for anything else other than that. And from that, what arises is a joy. It's just a quiet joy of things just being what they are. In the formal meditation practice, there's an experience of when we first start to sit at the beginning of our meditation, excuse me, we're trying to find ourselves, if you will. We're trying to find the breath. We're trying to settle in. We're trying to catch the mind as it's waking up, as it's wandering. And then there's a shift where the meditation just starts to happen, where there's a natural flow. Are you aware of that when that happens? There's a point in the meditation where we're letting go, really letting go of doing anything. But it's a physical feeling in the body where energy flow opens up. Where all of a sudden the energy in the body feels like it's woken up. It's moving easefully. The meditation on the breath is a really powerful way to connect with that. So there's a state of easefulness that presents itself. And that state of easefulness is an expression of free flow of energy. It's not getting locked in anywhere. Not getting caught anywhere. We're not falling asleep. So there's an easefulness that presents itself. a naturally spontaneous occurring easefulness. So we wake the energy up, right? We develop some calm, we develop some focus. We watch the breath, or maybe you're doing a mantra. And then at some point we notice this flow. We notice it in the body. We notice it in sensations in the body. So, are you connecting with that? Do you understand that? Different times with our meditations, we're working in different ways, but there's a point. There's a point where we just open up to this easefulness and simply be, simply watch. And then that translates into our day. That translates into our day. And we find ourselves just moving through the day, working with what presents itself, moving through the experiences, moving with the experiences that present themselves. When I say flow, when I talk about flow in the meditation, when I talk about flow in the day, another way of saying it is lack of stickiness. Lack of stickiness. Same thing. Getting stuck. The formal practice allows the energy, if you will, to open up into that free-flowing form. We connect with that. And then as we get off the mat and we move through the day, that energy is still with us. We work with that. We develop that. And can we be with that in times of difficulties? Not saying everything's perfect. Can we connect with that actuality, that reality, even when things aren't going our way? That's a challenge. You're having a good day, good morning. Your partner says something, pushes a button, or somebody at work, you react again. That doesn't stop the flow. That doesn't stop the flow. The stickiness stops the flow. You work with it best you can. Try to take your foot out of your mouth or whatever the case may be. But that doesn't change the flow. That's the thing, isn't it? So we identify with the other, with the stickiness, with the difficulty. So think about that. We connect with the flow. I'm using the word tonight, flow, because that's experience. It can be the physical experience. But we could call it equanimity. We could call it calmness. We could call it awareness. But let's work with this idea of flow this week, tonight. Whatever happens, it's still happening. Once the moon got out of the way, the sun was still shining. Did you notice that? So it's not like everything is groovy all the time. It's not like we're always connected with the flow, but the flow is always connected with us. Being in the path of totality is being on a path that's moving, connecting with that. Watching the river flow. And within this, you get a sense of this great easefulness that we have access to. It's work and it's not. It's work until it's not work anymore. And then it's not. And that can flip. The other thing that's implied in this is it's not static. We're not looking for a static place. Oh, I landed. I've got it. It's movement. It's moving. It's continuous. So we just keep reawakening to it. We keep reawakening to it. And we find it. We connect with it in our meditation practice. We connect with it in the breath. We connect with it in the body. And if you're paying attention in your meditation, there's a point where you settle into something and you can feel that there's just an easefulness that's there. And we work with that. and then off the cushion. Once you've connected with that, that energy situation is still happening. That energetic disposition is still happening.